Here we go.
She's fine.
All right, y'all, I think we're gonna get started. Hopefully you enjoyed that up-close view with Bella, who's one of our wonderful giant tortoises here at the Nashville Zoo. My name is Jake. Thanks so much for joining our live stream today. We're gonna be talking a little bit about giant tortoises, what makes them so unique, what makes them so cool, and about how turtles and tortoises are some of the most critically endangered species in the world, how most people don't really know about that, and then also how you can help. So just a quick note, we are a nonprofit, so you can find the donation link and the link to our online store in the description box of this video. Once again, my name is Jake and I'm here with one of our amazing herpetology keepers. This is Katie, everyone.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Katie. Can you kind of give us a little description of everybody who's in the yard with us today?
I
Who they
can.
are?
So who we're zooming in on right now, this is Bella. She is 28 years old. She is a Galapagos tortoise. She's a female, obviously. She weighs about 250 pounds right now. And as a female, she can get close to 500 pounds. And then just kind of right here behind her is Zanzibar. This is an Aldabra tortoise. So this is the second largest species of tortoise in the world. And she is 9 years old as of March 22nd. So just had a birthday just a little while ago. And this one weighs about 130-ish pounds or so. And then just behind Jake here, there's a little bitty squirt. This is a baby Hugh, and he is, or it is, 5 years old. Weighs probably about 50 pounds right now. And then as Hugh is passing, this is Coraline behind him. Coraline is 9 years old, like Zanzibar. They're siblings. He is an Aldabra tortoise. Now I say he, we're just guessing. They have to be at least about 20 years old for us to even know if they're males or females. So we're still kind of just guessing based on his behaviors. And then Darwin, big girl over here. She is 29 or 28, just like her sister over here, Bella. She weighs about 200 pounds. She is one of our friendliest little girls. She is content to sit by the pool and have someone come and scratch her neck.
Same.
So, yes, I'd love to sit by the pool and have my neck scratched.
That's awesome.
Or your back scratched.
And I think we have one more friend all the way in the corner.
Oh, yeah, we have one little bitty
This one is so cute. Who is that, Katie?
This is baby Cow over here. This is our smallest little tortoise. And just, just because that's just how she is. She weighs probably about 40 pounds right now. Hi, baby. She's 5 years old. We're still, like I said, we're still kind of waiting to see if they are males or females. We got to wait a couple of years for a little while. But she's got a good personality too. She likes her shell scratched and her little arms and her neck scratched too, just like everybody else. There it is. There you go, sweet kid.
Katie, since you're talking about shell scratches and all that, can you debunk the myth for us about that they can actually feel the scratches?
Yes, they can. Their shell is a part of their body. So their shell is essentially a giant bone that encases all of their organs, and kind of where you can see the skin stop and the shell start, there's no skin past that. So the shell is the outer part of their body. So all of their spine runs right along here, and then the rib cage runs, off of the spine, and it's all attached to the shell. So they cannot take their shell off like a lot of cartoons will show, kind of like where a hermit crab can change its shell and get a new one. Tortoises have this their entire lives. So all of these little teeny ones right here kind of in the center are their baby scoots. So that's what they had when they hatched. And then as they grew, they would grow and get more and more and more rings as they grew. And not necessarily one a year like you can on a tree. You can't count their rings to tell how old they are. Because you can kind of see on this kid right here, she's probably, if you get real close, I don't know how good we'll focus on that, but he's probably got about 30 or so here, and he's only 5 years old. So you can't necessarily count the rings to tell how old they are.
That's really interesting. I did not expect that. So
I get a little too
fact. Yeah, that's handy. Now, what I love about tortoises, especially these land-dwelling guys, is they have all of these beautiful scales covering their legs. And a lot of times what the tortoises will do when they are faced with a predator is they'll pull their arms and their legs as far in as they can,
Right.
and then they can actually put their legs kind of right in front of their face. And all these scales help protect them from those predators.
Exactly.
So I know for sure our gopher tortoise does that a lot when she's like hunkered down. I bet the Galapagos tortoises and the Aldabras can do the same thing, right, Katie?
They do, yes. And they're wanting to cover up their face and then also their tail kind of in the back, because that's some of the most vulnerable places on their body. Because not a lot of things can get through this shell, and then these scales and stuff on their arms are pretty strong too, so that helps to keep any teeth or claws or anything from a predator to get to them.
Pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
Now, as you're looking right at this tortoise's face, which one was this
This
again?
is baby cow.
Baby cow. If you look at baby cow's face, you'll notice that kind of has like a beak instead of teeth.
Right.
And I think that's kind of another myth about tortoises, is that they have like sharp teeth. They do have like a very sharp beak, right,
Yes,
Katie?
exactly. And especially on, I don't know how close and how detailed you can get on this video, but they even have serrations on their beaks when they're little, because as you have to kind of think about what they're eating, they're going to take a big chunk of something and they have to break it down small enough to be able to swallow it, because they don't chew it like we would to break it down. They're going to get a chunk small enough and swallow it whole. And then as they get a little older, that beak kind of wears down, you know, just like a lot of things wear down, as they're not going to need to break down things as small when they get a little bit bigger.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah. And their beaks are, it's made out of keratin, so a stronger kind of hardened keratin, so it's sort of like what your fingernails are made out of. And then also this covering that you can see on the tops of their shells, what we call scutes, is also made out of keratin. Just a little bit modified, kind of a different chemical formula, sort of the way it's made.
Very nice. Do we have any questions so far, Kelsey?
Let's see. I'm trying to like zoom in on this.
When a tortoise just like let loose some stool over there,
Yes.
which is very distracting. You're fine, Kelsey, I'll tell you.
I was like, don't let me fall. Let's see. Joy's wondering, do these guys get along?
Do they get along? They will for the most part, yes. When we first introduce them, they all have to kind of go through the hierarchy of figuring out who's boss. And usually the biggest tortoise is going to be the boss. So Bella, being probably over 250 pounds at this point, she's always the boss. But she has always been very gentle with the smaller ones. It's only these two Aldabras here that you can see, they're getting bigger. They're getting closer to her size. So she's always keeping an eye on them. But for the most part, they sleep together. They'll lay in the sun together all day. They'll go into their barn at night, and 4 of them will clutter together in a small little, they have a little nest box inside that they all kind of sit and sleep together. So
How
yeah.
cute.
If they're not fighting over food, then they're like, oh yeah, we're friends. So
Katie, I know you mentioned this earlier, but could you repeat, how old do they have to be before you can tell their gender?
they have to be at least 20 years old to be 100% positive. A lot of them, and especially males, will start developing those signs, the outer signs that we can see closer to like maybe 12, 13 years old, maybe even into 15 years. But to be 100% sure to do like an ultrasound or anything like that, we would at least 20 years.
So we've got a while to go for these younger guys.
Yes, we can guess, but I'm never going to say 100% until we can actually see all of those things, the organs for sure.
That makes complete
Oh,
sense.
sorry, hi Coraline.
I think
right.
an important thing to talk about now too, because I think we get this question a lot when we're talking about turtles and tortoises, is how old can Aldabras and Galapagos tortoises live to be, Katie?
For the most part, we usually just say over 100 years. We aren't exactly sure of their life expectancy because they are fairly new to zoos, having them and having actual hatch days and then on to death days. So as zoos, I mean, granted, there are some zoos out there that are 80 years old or more, you know, long established zoos, but tortoises can outlive even that still. So we're still kind of waiting. There is an Aldabra tortoise, I'm sure you could probably Google him. His name is Jonathan, and they guess him to be about 100, I think he's 189 this year.
Oh my gosh.
So they have for sure more than 130 of his years documented. So they weren't exactly sure how old he was even when they found him in the wild. But still, well over 100 years is what we like to say.
It's pretty old.
Yes.
So that kind of helps us talk a little bit about having a turtle or tortoise as a pet.
Yes.
Obviously, they can outlive you. Maybe not the best pet for everyone because you have to have a plan for that.
Right.
But what are some of the other things that people have to consider when thinking about having one of these guys as a companion animal in their home?
You're going to want to think about the size too. Darwin here, our female Galapagos tortoise, she can get close to 500 pounds. If you have a male, it'll be closer to 600 pounds. She's only 200 pounds right now. So if she were a male, she would triple in size.
That's crazy.
And then also think about what they're going to be eating. They're going to be eating all the grasses and all of your shrubs, and they're going to need lettuce and veggies and all kinds of things to be chewing on and grazing on, because they will be grazing out here all day whenever they're outside. She's got a little bit of grass there hanging in her mouth. She's getting a little treat while we were talking. Those are a couple of things.
Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah.
Katie, Carrie is wondering, do they ever feel afraid of humans?
If there's quite a few of us in here, they're thinking that some medical something is about to happen, because that's usually when they're afraid. When our vet staff comes in, unfortunately for our vet staff, because they do an amazing job with all of them, with all of our animals, but usually they're coming in to do something that's giving them a shot or checking out something that's hurting, so they kind of get a bad rap. So if there's quite a few people in here, they do get a little apprehensive. So that's usually why if there's maybe 1 or 2 keepers in here at a time, we try to keep it pretty minimum. But that's the only time I've ever seen them be afraid of humans.
That makes sense.
But they love our affection. They love getting neck scratches and stuff from us. So.
Idra, I hope I'm saying that right, is wondering, what area are these guys native to, and are they endangered?
All giant tortoise species are endangered, yes. The Galapagos tortoises are, of course, from the Galapagos Islands in the Pacific Ocean. And then the Aldabra tortoises are native to the Seychelles Islands in the Indian Ocean. There's a section of islands that's called the Aldabra Atoll, so that's how they get their name. And Coraline, her name, just speaking of another one, this is Bella over here, but Coraline was named because their shell is the same color as the coral that lines the islands that they're from.
Ooh!
That's that little bit of a word twist there.
I did have another question about their names, Katie.
Yes.
How did these guys all get their names?
Bella and Darwin, so these 2 girls here, the Galapagos tortoises came to us with their names. Darwin, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will guess, from Charles Darwin. And Bella, her previous owners, their daughter's name is Annabelle, so they named Bella after the daughter, Bella, once they figured out that she was a female.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And then Darwin kind of understands her name, so we just kept it. After we found out she was a little lady, she understands her name as Darwin, so we just left it that way.
I like it.
It's cute. Katie, can you tell us a little bit about the kind of treats that you might feed them or what you might use for training?
A lot of times strawberries are the key one that I will go to. They will do anything for a strawberry.
Me too.
They love watermelon, cantaloupe, anything that's kind of brightly colored. Carrots and sweet potatoes are part of their normal diet, but if I need to get them shifted in at the end of the day, I will usually hold back a couple pieces of carrot or sweet potato just because it's that bright color. So we'll use, when we're weighing them, we'll use strawberries because we want it to be a special treat, because we want them to really want to do this behavior. And then anytime the vets are in here and they do a really good job with any blood draws or anything like that, we'll give them some strawberries because we want to reinforce that the tortoises did a really good job with something that's kind of scary for them. So,
Awesome.
I even have a couple. We'll give them I have a couple of strawberry tops, because a lot of people don't like to eat the green part of the strawberry, but these kids love it.
Awesome.
They love their strawberry tops.
So should we go ahead and get the lunch out and let these guys chow down?
Yeah, let's get some of that lunch.
Jake, I am going to ask you a very tough question. How many teeth do these tortoises have?
0 teeth.
Look, you knew one.
I know. So we talked a little bit earlier about the beaks that turtles and tortoises have, and you can see it really nicely here. And every once in a while you'll see like a chip or a gap or whatever, but it's very normal for them to have those. Generally speaking, older tortoises and turtles will have a full beak on the top and bottom mandible. The younger turtles and tortoises will have more serrations, which allow them, as Katie mentioned a little bit earlier, to break up their food a little better when they're so tiny. So, Kelsey, do you want to move over to the feast? This isn't for us, Kelsey, so please restrain yourself. Katie and our amazing commissary staff have organized this lovely meal for the turtles and tortoises.
A little bit of a half over here for the Aldabra tortoises. They are fairly well trained to come to a specific place. It gives them an opportunity to get their share. And then I'll put the Galapagos tortoises in a different spot. But this is Coraline coming up. We've got some kale and some collard greens and some turnip greens. And then a few pieces of squash and some sweet potatoes and carrots. And a lot of times the reason I have to separate the Aldabras from the Galaps is here in a minute he'll probably come and sit on half of his diet, and then the other tortoises won't get any. So I have to be kind of fair so everybody gets a chance.
Does he like to sit on it and then wait till everybody else gives up and then he comes off and eats it?
Yes.
Good for him.
They'll hide it all and then let them get bored with it and then go and eat the rest. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna kind of waylay Darwin over here.
So, you guys are looking at Aldabra and Galapagos tortoises. Jake, do you know this bit of trivia? How can you tell the difference between an Aldabra and a Galap?
That's a great question for Katie. I'm still not great at it.
That's fine. Because we're looking really close at this one's face, it'll be a really good one to show. So you can kind of see the eyes and the nostrils. See, his nostril points slightly down towards the ground. A Galapagos tortoise, their eyes and their nostrils line up in a straight line. So their noses look like they're pointing kind of straight at you if you're looking at them. And then also, right here on the shell, this piece of their shell here is called the nuchal scute. Aldabra tortoises have it, and Galapagos tortoises just don't have it. Their shell comes to a complete V. And here comes a Galap, you can kind of see that right here, right on the shell. And then also the nostril, how it points almost straight at you when you're looking at it.
That's really interesting.
Everybody on this plate. That's fine. Everybody's gonna eat off of the same.
We can go over to the other one.
Well, it'll take a while.
Right. They're here now.
It's like, well, we're here. I might let Darwin stay there. Come on, Bill. Let's go to the other side. Come on.
Any other questions coming in so far, Kelsey?
Let's see. Steven, I see your question about the zoo reopening. No, we don't have a date. We're part of phase 3 of the mayor's reopening plan for Nashville, so we are waiting for that. But we're excited to reopen when we can.
Come on, baby girl. Let's go.
Mona is wondering, do these guys soak to absorb water?
They can, yes.
They can?
In the hotter months, in the heat of the summer, you'll find Darwin sitting right on the edge of the pool, just taking in the whole day, in the water. She loves to sit by the pool.
Cute.
And a lot of times, the bigger Bella here will just kind of wade through the middle of the pool just to get a little splash, just a little rinsing off. And then also, I will every day come in with a hose and spray them so that it mimics kind of the rain.
Yeah.
So they'll get a lot of rain on their shell with that.
Everybody loves a good soak.
Look at that sweet potato. Kelsey, maybe I can take this opportunity while we're watching these tortoises enjoy their meal to talk a little bit about turtle and tortoise conservation.
Yeah.
So out in the wild, turtles and tortoises are some of the most critically endangered species around the world. Threats like habitat loss, poaching, the exotic pet trade, there are numerous threats that turtles and tortoises face every single day out in the wild. Really easy ways for you and I to help out. Take this time that we are not supposed to be out in public and go to your local park or river or greenway and clean up some of the garbage around there, because healthy habitats mean healthy animals. And the turtles and tortoises that live there will really appreciate that. Another way that you can help out is by looking up their Turtle Survival Alliance. That's Turtle Survival Alliance, TSA. And they have a lot of really amazing efforts around the world to help these critically endangered species. Because like we always talk about, when it comes to our ecosystems around the world, we need every single piece of the puzzle to help maintain the health of the ecosystem. So if we lose a species or multiple species of turtles or tortoises, that's really detrimental to the entire ecosystem. So help out if you can. You can also check out our conservation efforts at naturalzoo.org.
Let's see. Debbie's wondering, do one type of tortoise have a longer neck than the other?
So I know for sure with the Galapagos tortoises, there are several different subspecies or types, and you'll see them have different length of necks and actually a lot of other small characteristics that differentiate them. And that's largely based on what kinds of foods that they have evolved to eat on the different islands and in the different areas. So you'll certainly see some individuals with longer necks or shorter necks. I don't know, Katie, do you know specifically between the Aldabras and the Galaps, like does one seem to have a longer or shorter neck?
It's more so males or females.
Okay.
But then there's also 3 different shell types for Galapagos specifically. They have a domed shell, so it's kind of like our girls here, where it's very closed, kind of closed at the neck. And then they have a saddle-backed type of shell, where it kind of stops about here and then opens up really wide. And then that allows the neck to reach really high. And then also there's one that's kind of intermediate, so it's kind of in between those two. So not the completely closed extreme or not the really high extreme. And I did hear a little bit, there used to be 13 different subspecies of Galapagos tortoises. And I want to say that all but 9 have gone extinct.
That's crazy.
Not exactly sure of that number because there's so many genetic things that they're working on, but at one point I did hear that.
Katie, you mentioned a little bit earlier that one of our Galapagos tortoises is kind of the boss or alpha of the others.
Yes.
But do these guys ever fight other than that?
Sometimes Bella and Darwin will kind of get into it, but the biggest thing that they do as far as fighting is they'll stand up really tall, stretch their necks out as high as it'll go, and mouth gape at each other. Whoever is the tallest is the winner, and then that's pretty much it. There's not really a whole lot of fighting.
It's you.
I would be the winner.
So yes, Jake would be the tallest and the winner. But yeah, that's all the fighting that they'll do. Sometimes Bella will go, Darwin here, will go and pick on her big sister and do it on purpose. So she's kind of asking for trouble, and then Bella says, "No, honey, I'm taller than you. I am the boss." And then they just put it out for that.
That
Yeah,
was
just stole sweet potato.
that was really savage.
So this is a lot of reasons I'll try to separate the Galaps from the Aldabras, because the Aldabras they love to eat and they're going to steal anything. Here,
And like
Billy.
have no shame about it too.
Take that one.
A
Nope,
little-
she doesn't mind. She's like, "No, this is mine now. Thanks."
Chris is wondering, can these guys see colors?
I think so, just based on the fact that I'll have hay out for them to eat all day long. But as soon as I put a brightly colored veggie or even some greens or anything of a different color besides hay color, they come right for it. So that's my biggest yes, I think they do. That'll be a good reason for it.
Katie, can you share a little bit about turtles versus tortoises? What's the difference? Does it matter? Can you talk a little about that?
A little bit, yeah, sure. So a turtle is kind of a good term to kind of encompass every reptile that you find that has a shell. A tortoise is kind of a more specialized, specific term for turtles that live on the land a lot and have the higher dome shells with the club-like feet. But yes, if you say turtle, you're going to get anybody that's got a shell, pretty much. Any reptile that has a shell. So, and then a difference between a turtle and a tortoise. So you're going to have your aquatic turtles are going to have flippers. So they're going to need to be able to swim through the water. So they've got their webbed toes, and then their stream-like shells. So they're more kind of water dynamic, not necessarily aerodynamic, but water dynamic. And then your tortoises, they're on the land more. They're going to be trepsing around and kind of stomping around. They have to have those big elephantine feet and those club-like arms to kind of protect themselves, and then these really high dome shells. So those are the biggest differences between them.
MJ is wondering, how big are these guys when they're first born?
An egg from a Galapagos tortoise is 7 centimeters across. So probably about like this. And then once they hatch, they're maybe just a little bit bigger because in the shell they're going to be growing. And then as the shell kind of hardens, it kind of flattens out, makes them a little bit bigger. So probably between 7 and 8 centimeters long.
So it takes a really long time for these guys to grow to be their full size.
Yes, exactly. And this is a really kind of good comparison right here. You've got a 20-year-old Galapagos tortoise sitting next to a 9-year-old Aldabra tortoise. So in those first couple of years, they're all going to grow really fast. And then once they kind of get to a good size that's going to keep them protected from any predators or anything that's going to harm them, then they slow way down. And then they kind of pretty much grow the rest of their entire lives. They're going to be putting on pounds and eating with the rest of their life. They're loving that sweet potato.
Really good question from Elizabeth. What are their predators in the wild?
In the wild, the babies or the hatchlings are going to have the biggest predator. Even the eggs are going to have the biggest number of predators. So any bird, raccoon, rats are a big problem on the islands that they're from. So that was something that got into the nest and would kill the eggs before they could even have a chance. And then when hatchlings are small, their shells are soft. It's kind of like when a baby has a soft spot on their head when they're born. The tortoise shell, it takes a few days for it to harden up to give them that good protective casing. So anything that could get into, like, any kind of like rodents, birds sometimes, anything that's in the water, like crocodiles. A lot of there's crocodiles necessarily where they're from, but anything kind of like that sort of thing. As an adult tortoise, this is what I usually ask people during my keeper talk when we're open. I'll ask, well, who do you think would be a tortoise this size biggest predator? And the answer is us as humans. There's not a lot of other things in the wild that are going to predate on something this big, because that shell is going to be really hard to get into. So they've got a perfect kind of armor, so to speak, to protect them from any predators in the wild.
So Katie, I know that you do a lot with our turtles and tortoises here at the zoo.
Yes.
And I know that one of the big projects that we participate in is a Head Start program for alligator snapping turtles.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that and the conservation work we do with that?
Yes. So this work started back in 2016, so almost 4 years ago now. We started out with some little hatchling turtles from an institution called Tishmingo. It's a fish hatchery in Oklahoma. They had a brood stock of turtles. We got some hatchlings from those, and we were able to take those and put them in our conservation center and raise them. And actually, just last week, we were able to send away some of our already of good size. They're probably about this size when we sent them back to TWRA, because we're working with TWRA. And they're going to re-release them back into the wild. So what we do with this program is we'll take the really vulnerable hatchlings, so the little bitty teeny guys, and raise them up for about 3 or 4 years, give them some good size, and then once they get to where they're not going to be predated on in the wild, then we re-release them back into the wild and let them live their life and repopulate the streams and the areas where they're from. So it kind of gives them that chink back in the chain of life.
Awesome. So you guys are hearing right now our flamingos squawk. They are just past these trees. But I saw a few questions from Joy and Gail as to whether these guys make any sounds.
Not for a general rule, no. Bella will pull her head in really fast when she's afraid, and there's a hissing sound.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially that hissing sound is her pushing all the air out of her lungs really fast to make room for her head to come in. So that's what the hissing sound is. She's not doing it necessarily like we would hiss, like, oh, we're angry. It's just that push of air out of their lungs. There is a little bit of noise when there's a male trying to mate with a female, but other than that, there's not a whole lot of sounds coming from these tortoises. And chomping from where they're chomping on their food. That's a good sound from them. Oh, that was a good chunk. There you go. Good job, darling.
It's so good.
Darwin's giving you a good show.
She is. Let me see. Barbara asked, what is a terrapin?
A terrapin, it's kind of a specific name for the turtles that you can find on land or in the water, kind of almost 50-50. A lot of times it's the diamondback terrapins, because they can spend time on the land and do just fine, and then they can also spend a lot of time in the water and do just fine. I'm trying to think if there's, and then also I know my grandfather, he's kind of old school, he'll call any turtle that he sees a terrapin, and that's just, I think it's just a term that they got through the ages. That was just something that, oh well, he's not necessarily a tortoise because he's not always on the land, but he's not always in the water, so terrapin. I think that's basically where it came from.
Okay, that's really interesting. I saw a question from Chris. Is a box turtle really a tortoise?
Not exactly. If you look closely at their front feet, they have a little bit of a webbed foot. They use that more to kind of dig into the muddy areas, not necessarily in their very dry areas like a tortoise would be found. Yeah, that's one of those ones that it's had a name, so it's kind of stuck with it, but it's kind of got characteristics of more of a tortoise, yeah, sure, but also parts of a turtle too, which kind of goes back to the term of terrapin. So there's some that kind of overlap and kind of intermix.
All this naming is so confusing to me.
Yes, exactly.
A question from Steven. Will these guys bite humans?
Out of curiosity, yes.
Bella did think my ankle was a piece of lettuce earlier.
Yes. They're not necessarily wanting to bite you out of meanness, but they will come up behind you, sneak up on you, and get you by a surprise because you're not paying attention to them. Or sometimes if you're feeding them a piece of something with your fingers, you don't pull your fingers out of the way fast enough, yeah, they're going to get you. But it's never aggression or meanness. It's just very curious.
I noticed that this Aldabra has some kale in her armpit, and I just really wanted to zoom in on it, so here we go. Like, how did you get that there?
Saving it for later.
It'll be a nice surprise.
This kind of goes back to, I'm going to hide all of this food until Darwin gets tired of eating or goes somewhere else, and then I'm going to back off and I'm going to get all of the food.
You're doing great.
They're a little sneaky that way.
But Bella just grabbed that piece from under her arm, so you're not doing a great job.
Darwin's sneaking in on your stuff.
Oh, sorry, Darwin.
That's okay.
Oh my gosh.
There are a lot of tortoises in
Yes,
here.
let's try to remember them all.
So there are 6 tortoises in here, but we have a lot more tortoises. We have like a bunch of sulcatas, right?
Yes, I'm not exactly sure how many they have right now, because I know we started out with quite a few, but kind of over time as they grew and got a little too much to handle, they were able to move on to new homes into other facilities where they have bigger yards for them. As for our purposes here, we like to have them out where people can come in and interact with them. When they're too big, they get a little too mean, and then also they're not going to be as apt to want the tasty treats from the guests.
Yeah, I have a very vivid memory of a sulcata tortoise thinking that my red toenail polish was a strawberry.
Yes, they love their strawberries.
I don't... They love me, what can I say?
They love your strawberry-like feet.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Debbie's wondering, what routine vet care do they have?
They will sometimes get some work on their toenails. Their toenails will sometimes on the back of their feet, they'll grow a little too long, and they can't wear them down themselves. We'll get blood work on them every couple of months just to check, make sure their levels are all okay. And then for our big girls, they were having some bouts of digging, so we were thinking that they might have been ovulating, or maybe were developing eggs. So they would have a couple ultrasounds every now and again. That's basically the biggest vet interactions we'll have is ultrasounds, blood draws, and some feet and nail trimmings and stuff.
Katie, this might be a silly question, but I promise it's completely out of ignorance.
That's okay.
How do you like perform an ultrasound on a tortoise?
For our big girls, because they love to have their necks scratched so much, you can just go through and just touch them with the probe kind of right here behind the leg. And at the right time, she's pulling her leg in right now, but they'll just stand up and just hold really still, and you can just put the probe right up here underneath next to the leg, and you can see the entire body.
How interesting.
So it's actually, for them, it's super easy.
Yeah. Let's
I'm
see.
just helping my girl out here. I'm finding all
All the
the
good
chunks of
stuff.
produce and just tossing it up for Darwin.
Find the good stuff for
Well,
her.
yeah, the Aldabra finally walked away, so Darwin's got the whole pile now.
She's like, oh, are you just gonna hand it to me?
I can, if that makes it easier. She's like, I don't even know. Oh no, it's getting hidden. Here you go.
Take that one.
Oh my gosh.
Loves it.
I love these guys. Kim's wondering, how would you know if they were upset? Would they be upset?
For our girls, just because we know their personalities and how they act around us.
I just don't want to get beaked.
Yes.
She's just like not very careful with her
No,
beak.
she's not. Because we know
There you
how
go,
they
girl.
react to certain things. For them to be upset, they would probably just be sitting with their heads tucked into their shell and not moving a whole lot. Because when we come in, they're very attentive to us. They're very on top of. They're like, oh, hey, you're in here to give me neck scratches or food or whatever it is, and they interact with us a lot. So if one was upset or feeling sick or anything like that, we would know because of what we know about their personality.
So they would be more withdrawn?
Yes, very withdrawn, yes.
Teresa's wondering, are they ticklish?
I don't know that necessarily the ticklish of what you think of what a human would be ticklish. You can always tickle their necks and they like that, so I don't know that they're necessarily ticklish.
Okay.
That's an interesting term for them, anyway. Yeah. She's like, don't bother me, I'm eating.
Right. Don't get in her way.
And thank you. Hi, baby Hugh. You want to come join us?
The babies are looking right behind you, Kelsey.
I was like, I gotta protect my ankles.
I haven't given them their diet yet, but I will.
Where do you feed them?
They feed kind of down here at the bottom of the
Oh,
hill.
cute. So
Come on,
if you
babies.
missed that a little bit earlier, Katie feeds the different tortoises in different spots all throughout the exhibit so that they, A, don't have to fight over food, but B, it also gives her a really great look at how they're doing, how they're moving around, what they're choosing to eat, if they're choosing to not eat anything, all of the normal things that we're looking for with our different animals so we can provide them the best care. We have an intruder.
Yeah, this is
Update.
actually- this
Well, I
one
guess-
Zanzi would normally be
I was
eating.
gonna say, I guess Darwin's actually the
Darwin
intruder,
is
right?
the intruder, yep.
This is what we call a tortoise traffic jam.
Everybody's getting in on the food.
Here you go.
Baby Hugh, would you like a piece?
What do you think?
A little bit more timid than the big kids. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Oh, yeah.
kale.
We like that.
Kale is so good, or whatever that is. Collard greens.
Collard greens,
Yeah.
Steven,
Here's some
you are totally right. It is more like a beak. They don't really have teeth. Let's see, what else?
You can see baby Hugh kind of using his feet to try to tear at the collard greens too. That's really cute.
Get it small enough to be able to work it down.
got a tongue.
Katie, Kara's wondering, what is their favorite thing to do?
Favorite thing to do?
Mm-hmm.
Eat and sleep.
Jake.
Same, yeah. I'm just not into all these greens. I'm glad that they're eating all these greens.
Yeah, they eat pretty healthy.
Courtney's wondering, how do you tell them apart, Katie?
Well, there's quite a few different ways. And also working with them they've been at the zoo here for almost 15 years now, I think. No, it hasn't been that long. Oh my goodness, gracious me. It's been,
A while.
oh, okay, 7 years, I think. Anyway, so right here close to each other, this is Coraline that my hand's on here. See, his snookle scoot is perfect. It sits perfect. On Zanzibar, her snookle scoot kind of just pushes to the side a little bit. And then also she has this place on her shell. It's just the way her shell grew. She's not hurt. It's just a different way that as she was growing. So that's the way I can tell them apart. Coraline has the perfect scoot. And then Zanzibar has a little bit of a crazy one. And then for the babies, I don't know, the babies are, I'm still kind of learning with them, but Hugh is a little bit bigger and a lot more personable, likes to come over and see us a lot more. He's sticking his little head out. Oh my goodness, he's so cute. And then Cal is very kind of, you know, to herself and is shy. She's kind of shy. And then Darwin, I always say Darwin kind of has an old lady face. She's got, it's almost like her face is a little skinnier. And then Bella's face is just kind of plump and just looks full. So I usually call Darwin the old lady. Oh.
My phone just flipped over. That was fun. Plot twist.
Surprise.
So there's quite a few different ways to tell them apart, but it's just learning. And just because I work with them every day, and I've been working with them the whole time they've been here. So
Very cool. Any last questions?
No, I see a few. Allison is asking about the tortoise eggs again. Katie, you were saying they were 7 centimeters.
yes.
And I think that about does it, Jake.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody so much for joining us on our Facebook Live today. Next week we'll be back with even more content. If you are able to help out the Nashville Zoo in this time of need, check out the donation link in the description box. You can also find the link to our online store that's shop.nashvillezoo.org, and you can get everything that you normally would get in the gift shop, but online. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Thank you, Katie, and our tortoise friends.
Of course.
Bye, everybody.